a woman devoted to her town.
She was the deputy county treasurer. Away from the courthouse, you saw a different person. She loved to dance.
Her life snuffed out in a savage attack.
There was quite a bit of blood.
She had been beaten pretty severely.
She had to have been terrified. She struggled at the end of her life.
She had no enemies. Nobody had a clue who would do something like that.
Police investigate several troubling theories.
Is it a close friend that got into an argument with her?
There had been some shouting matches.
Maybe she interrupted a burglary or a theft.
After months of false leads and dead ends,
the town was on high alert.
A stunning discovery breaks open the case.
It added a new twist to the crime.
All of a sudden you realize, maybe I don't know all my neighbors.
And points to a murderer in their midst.
I was kind of speechless at first.
I thought, my gosh, I mean, you just can't believe it.
The tiny farming community of Colon, Nebraska is one of the smallest towns in America, with a population of just over 100 people.
Colon, Nebraska is a very laid-back community, very close-knit families there. I think that if you went there, you'd drive through and you go, oh, this is small.
Many people would leave their doors unlocked, their cars unlocked, keys left in the ignition, just a feel of safety, that there's no threat.
But then on June 30th, 2003, police receive a distressing call.
Around 6:42 in the evening, dispatch indicated to me that they had received a report of a possible suicide.
My friend ended up finding her body across the street in her garage, along with a gun.
He had called 911, and it was reported as a suicide. Once I arrived, the firemen on scene already were pointing me to a garage. I walked in and could see the body of a white female that was laying on the ground. There was quite a bit of blood, and there was disfigurement to the head and face area, so we could not recognize the victim. A black handgun was found near her head.
There is so much blood on the scene, investigators aren't able to determine the cause of death and need to wait for an autopsy to be sure.
The small black handgun didn't actually contain bullets, and we didn't find any shell casings in the area. The car had a smear on the driver's side, and then I did find that there was a smear of what appeared to be blood on the walk-in door that went out the side of the garage.
There was also what looked like blood spatter, where someone stepped in the pool of blood.
There was a footprint impression that was taken
that indicated that there was a second person there. This was a suspicious death.
There were DNA swabs taken on her body and of her clothing that she was wearing at the time. We noticed that her purse was located underneath her vehicle.
Was this just a botched burglary, or did the person have some other intention?
From the personal items in her purse, police identify the victim as 66-year-old Sharon Erickson.
Sharon was very well known. It was shocking to us as law enforcement to see somebody that was a fixture in the community being the victim in this case.
Born and raised in Nebraska's farm country, Sharon Erickson was a lifelong government worker.
Sharon worked across the hall from me. She was the deputy county treasurer. She was excellent, very honest. I would put her against anybody in the state of Nebraska for knowledge when it comes to the office of the treasurer. She would do anything for you. Gosh darn. When it came to the office or anything, she was always attentive and very, very helpful always.
In 1998, after 37 years of devoted service, Sharon retired.
Away from the courthouse, you saw a different person, more relaxed. She loved to dance, and if anyone wanted to dance, boom, she was on the dance floor. And boy, she was so good at dancing. I'm telling you what, boy, she could dance every dance until they'd shut the music off.
As a single woman, Sharon lived alone, but saw the people of Colon as her family.
People used to go to the bar and have coffee. Well, that one closed. Sharon came over and she says, I have a little front room in my house there. Would you come and remodel it and paint it for me? She had me fix that room up and gave the locals a key for coffee. Had a coffee pot in there. It was just somewhere where they could go. She didn't charge them. That's the type of person that you're talking about.
Police are at a loss when they realize Sharon was attacked just 50 feet away from the gathering spot she gifted to the town. Who could have wanted to kill her and why? Detectives expand their search for evidence to Sharon's home.
She lived in what used to be a grocery store and had converted to her house.
The other odd thing about Sharon's residence is that her garage was located across her house. And so to get to her car, she would have to walk out the front of her house and across Main Street.
What or who could have lured Sharon out of her home and to her death in the garage?
We did find some damage to the back door that appeared to be consistent with some forced entry.
There was a coal chisel that was found next to the door that more than likely was used.
We also did find that the phone line had been cut.
There was at least some planning on the attack. Someone was obviously trying to prevent her from calling for help.
Inside, there was nothing out of place. When we started going room by room, we found that there was a holster for a small gun in her bedroom near the bed, and the gun was missing. That, along with her bed not being made and the back door having damage and being pried open, we started to have a picture in our minds that this may have occurred in the middle of the night.
Our assumption was that there was a burglary. She was alerted to the burglary because of noise coming from the person prying on the back door, that she got up out of bed, grabbed her gun, and went to investigate what was occurring before she was killed.
As investigators continue to process the scene, they are interrupted by volunteer firefighter and village postmaster Rick Hartman.
He was friends with Sharon. He actually was the one that found her body.
Mr. Hartman appeared to be a little more interested in the situation than some of the other firefighters that were there. Mr. Hartman had to be asked on several different occasions to stay behind the crime scene tape.
After it kept happening, it really alerted a lot of us to, why does he keep doing this? Is there something else going on? Is there something wrong?
Rick's behavior makes officers immediately suspicious, so they approach him for an interview on site.
During the interview, Mr. Hartman had indicated that he was really close friends with Sharon.
When Sharon would leave town, she would leave a key in her post office box for him to check on her house. So he was trusted by her.
Sharon would come visit him every day when she'd come pick up her mail.
But Rick tells police he didn't see Sharon that morning. He was asked to check on her after a worried relative didn't hear from Sharon that evening.
Rick Hartman, he had gone looking for Sharon. Sharon was nowhere to be found.
Mr. Hartman opened the garage door and you could see Sharon laying beside her car.
Without prompting, he indicated that it was a suicide, that she had a gun, knew how to use it. But we were very confident that there was foul play involved.
When Rick is asked to make a formal statement, his demeanor abruptly changes.
He said, if you're going to arrest me, otherwise I'm leaving. I was taken aback.
Why would he say that? Why would he do that?
We needed to look a little harder at this person and find out what that was all about.
Coming up, new evidence reveals a disturbing detail.
She'd been sexually assaulted. I was definitely shocked.
Small-town gossip sparks salacious rumors.
There may have been more than just a friendship there.
He was trying to hide additional evidence.
And just when detectives think they have the killer in their sights,
It had to be him.
a startling truth is revealed.
It sent shockwaves through the entire area.
I went, what? You've got to be.
Police investigating the murder of Sharon Erickson are speaking to her close friend, Rick Hartman. But when they ask him for a statement, Rick suddenly ends the interview.
He was upset that he couldn't leave and finally just told the investigators that I'm going to leave, and if you want to arrest me, go ahead and arrest me.
That was pretty out of character and uncharacteristic for somebody who had a friend that was just killed. So that immediately caused investigators some concern.
His statements and odd behavior really pointed us in a direction towards the postmaster.
Mr. Hartman gave his alibi. He was at home with his family, and that was confirmed by his wife.
Rick never had any criminal record or had done anything wrong, so there wasn't a great deal of focus on him any more than anybody else.
Rick's on the back burner for now, but investigators will keep him in their sights.
We didn't want to rule anybody out specifically, but we wanted to cast a wide net.
While investigators consider their next move, news of the murder, the first one in 40 years, travels fast.
The town of Colon was buzzing. Well, I got calls, bang, bang, bang. I can't remember who called first. I went, what? That's all I got, and I just was dumbfounded. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. When you hear of someone that you know and you knew for 25, 30 years, it's devastating. Everyone's just shaking their heads saying, how can this happen? How can this happen?
Sharon's death was a big loss for our community. She had known so many people through her work, through her friends, and to not have her in the community anymore, that always creates a hole. Everybody spoke well of her.
She was beloved by the people in the community. We didn't know where to start looking, so we tried to determine anything potentially that could have happened. Is it a close friend that got into an argument with her? Is it a neighbor that maybe didn't like her?
The day after the murder, police canvassed Sharon's neighborhood.
They questioned almost everybody that knew Sharon about, have you heard anything? Do you have any information that can help us? And I said, I have no idea. No idea. She had no enemies. Nobody had a clue who would do something like that. It has to be someone that we don't know. I mean, it has to be someone that came from town.
While we don't have a lot of violent crime in the area, there was definitely one family that lived right behind Sharon that came to mind as somebody that could have been concerning.
The investigators had made contact with Jim Mars. He was an individual that would get into trouble here and there.
He wasn't real responsible. He associated with people that were involved in minor crimes such as burglaries, drug use.
I asked what his relationship with Sharon was, and basically it was just an acquaintance. Mr. Mars would see her occasionally outside of her house when he was going to the post office or on Main Street. They would say hi. He said he got in trouble by her a couple times for mischief when he was younger, and she would yell at him.
When we interviewed Jim Mars, he didn't know anything about Sharon's death, and he was so sorry that she died.
Jim had been in Kansas doing a roofing job. After he got back from Kansas, he eventually went to Wahoo, drank some beer with a friend, attempted to go to another bar. At that time, it was after closing time, and he drove the back roads home to Colon. He estimated he got home about 1:30 in the morning. Stayed up, watched TV, drank a pop, and then eventually went to bed.
His mom confirmed the time that he came home. Everything seemed to be okay with his story.
Investigators don't know the exact time of Sharon's death, so the 24-year-old remains on the suspect list. Before police leave, Jim gives them a tip.
Jim had indicated that there was a trucker that always had interactions and always seemed to be bickering with Miss Erickson. The truck driver may have parked a little bit on her property and she'd get upset about it. He might have his engine running on his truck and it would bother her.
She would bring it to his attention and he would not necessarily comply with her request.
It was no secret the two didn't get along.
We were gaining information from friends that Sharon had had disputes with this man.
Detectives must now determine if a run-in with the trucker turned fatal.
A lot of the community members felt that the truck driver was doing things to antagonize her and to cause more problems between them.
That was something that was public because there had been some shouting matches, some vocal exchanges about the fact that this truck was running all night.
Some of the people in the community who knew that he wasn't overly fond with Sharon, they kind of rumored him to be a suspect.
Maybe the frustration amongst the two had just finally boiled over. It just seemed suspicious.
I know the investigators had attempted to reach out to the truck driver in question and were unable to contact him.
Police do all they can, but can't track down the driver's whereabouts.
Today's technology is there's cameras everywhere. You're using your cell phone. At the time of this homicide, that kind of technology wasn't prevalent.
We didn't know if we were going to find that person.
Is Sharon Erickson's murderer on the run?
That's concerning, and that was on the minds of probably all the citizens in this area. And probably the scariest thing for law enforcement in the community is that person likely to offend again?
Police hunting the killer of 66-year-old Sharon Erickson have a new suspect, a truck driver she had clashed with several times.
Had something escalated from vocal argument to some other level.
Now, detectives fear the trucker has fled the area.
We went door to door, asked people if they saw the truck driver. No one had any information about him, and it didn't appear we were any further along than we were the night we got there, and the town was on high alert.
There's a murderer out there. It's hard to contemplate. Hard to contemplate.
A week after Sharon's murder, detectives received the autopsy results.
The report did indicate that the death would have occurred sometime, most likely that night or the early morning hours of the day that she was found.
The medical examiner indicated that there was no gunshot wounds, that the gun had not been used in the commission of the crime.
The pathologist ruled the cause of death to be asphyxiation along with blunt force trauma.
It was found that Sharon had been beaten pretty severely. She had also been strangled. She also suffered some broken ribs and had some defensive wounds on her hands from fighting off her attacker.
The autopsy contains one more disturbing detail.
She had a small vaginal tear as well, which indicated that she'd been sexually assaulted. I was definitely shocked that there was a sexual assault involved.
Totally unexpected. It added a new twist to the crime, which further led to more questions. It really makes you feel for the victim. She had to have been terrified for those few minutes that she struggled at the end of her life.
During the autopsy, her underwear were taken for possible examination for DNA. This being pretty early in the DNA process in the early 2000s, we waited.
2 days later, on July 10th, the trucker is back in town and police bring him in for questioning.
He's not overly cooperative. He was reluctant to give any details about where he was, what he was doing.
Detectives press the trucker on his relationship with Sharon.
The truck driver wouldn't have called Sharon a friend. He felt irritated by the way she would overreact, I believe is how he termed it.
He did not have a good relationship with her.
But the truck driver vows he's no killer.
He told us he was out of town at the time of the homicide. He was in Wyoming or Colorado. He was hundreds of miles away and had receipts to prove it. Officers were sent off to corroborate the receipt. He was asked for a DNA sample and a polygraph, and he refused.
Was the trucker hiding something?
It's just one of the things that you can add to a list of items that if there's too many on that list, it's a problem.
With nothing concrete linking the trucker to the homicide, detectives have to let him go.
Law enforcement officers were in the process of interviewing and chasing down alibis.
We'd been following up with people, but there was not a lot of new information coming in and not a lot of credible information.
With Sharon's murder still unsolved, the community remains on high alert.
Before this happened, it was probably one of the safest places you'd want to be. Everyone's on their toes. You know, you drive up, you lock your car, you lock your house, you watch everything. Here's a lady that just retired, 60-some years old. Who could do this? It just was a shock to the whole county.
As a community, you want resolution, or you at least want to know why it happened and how can we get some justice out of this.
Although the entire town is mourning the loss of Sharon, Rick Hartman seems to be taking an unnaturally keen interest in the investigation.
Rick would ask us about what we were doing about other leads, and then he would insert his thoughts.
His behavior was a little more pushy, trying to get as much information as Rick could.
Is this just a concerned friend who wants to see how the investigation's going, or is there something more to than that?
Despite his odd behavior, Rick still has a solid alibi, and the investigation stalls.
We decided that we all needed to get back together and just have like a brainstorm session and say, what do we do? One of the things that we talked about is at the time of the homicide, early 2000s, meth had been a problem.
People would steal anhydrous ammonia from tanks and then use that to create their own methamphetamine.
Some of these people were heavy addicts, very dangerous, and involved in a lot of crimes.
One of the things that was being discussed with the anhydrous tanks was they were not too far from Sharon's home. So could she have seen something? Could she have spotted something, said something to make someone believe that she knew who they were and what they were doing?
Did Sharon confront them? Did they attack her to keep her quiet?
We might be looking for somebody who's manufacturing and selling methamphetamine who may have been in Colon on that particular.
5 weeks after Sharon Erickson is savagely beaten to death, detectives investigate whether she had been killed by a criminal gang manufacturing illegal drugs near her home.
It's an easy target, no cameras in that area. We were aware that Sharon kept an eye on Main Street. She a lot of times had information about suspicious people, something going on after hours there.
Sharon was one that if she saw something that she didn't think was right, she wasn't afraid to stand up and say something.
Maybe she saw something that she shouldn't have. She interrupted a burglary or a theft. As we talked to people around town, they also indicated that that might have been one of the reasons why Sharon may have been murdered.
Investigators had talked to local suspects who were involved in the manufacturing of methamphetamine. People that we had arrested previous to this incident, and then people from the metro areas. Most of them have pretty extensive criminal records, and they're heavily addicted. So the level of cooperation with somebody who's addicted to methamphetamine is not going to be very good.
It creates a difficult picture to paint. We were not able to generate the type of evidence or leads that we really would hope for.
We as a department were frustrated with things not happening real fast and the way that you always want.
The canvas fails to yield the information police were looking for, as does the investigation into the trucker.
As the investigation unfolded, the truck driver was eliminated. He was miles and miles away from the incident. We contacted the establishment where he got fuel, and it wasn't a phony receipt.
With this, the driver is fully off the suspect list.
After doing the first set of interviews and looking at potential suspects, the investigators really weren't able to focus on anybody that would be so mad or somebody that would want to sexually assault Sharon or to kill her. So it kind of left a lot of question marks. Where do you go? What do you look for? There's just a lot of unknowns.
We just don't know what's going on. Do we feel safe or do we need to worry?
Everybody had their ideas who did this, and I think it just kept going and going and going. People didn't have a clue, but they wanted to talk about it.
There was a lot of discussion amongst the community members as to what was going on. A lot of rumors floating around.
One of these rumors that starts circulating has to do with one of Sharon's good friends and a familiar name to detectives.
Because of Rick's close contact with Sharon, small town rumors began to surface that there may have been more than just a friendship there.
Many of the community members had mentioned rumors that Rick Hartman and Sharon had been having an affair.
We start to wonder, was there more to their friendship, maybe in a romantic way?
There was talk. This was something that was being discussed, so it's not that hard of a thought process or big of a leap to say, could he be involved?
Police talked to Rick again, this time at the sheriff's office.
He was cooperative. He somehow, I think, liked the attention.
But that changes when detectives ask Rick some very pointed questions.
Law enforcement actually asked him if there was a romantic relationship between the two of them.
He was immediately offended, and he denied that.
Mr. Hartman appeared to be very distraught. He said he was just friends with her, that there was no romantic relationship.
Could the sexual assault that appeared in Sharon's autopsy actually have been a consensual encounter with Rick?
That question certainly seems accusatory. Those things are not comfortable, but that comes with the job. You got to do your job. Rick was questioned in detail and really scrutinized on where he was, what his involvement was. There were a number of times he said, we got to look somewhere else because we're wasting our time on him.
He became agitated and wanted to go home.
Rick stands by the alibi he gave police back when they first questioned him 7 weeks ago at the crime scene.
Rick was home with his wife at the time that we believe Sharon was killed.
The investigators went and corroborated his story with his wife again.
We really had no reason to believe that Rick's wife would not disclose if he were gone at that time. Even though there were a lot of things that kind of pointed to him, he had a pretty good alibi.
With no hard evidence against Rick, detectives have to let him go, but not before getting one thing.
We collected DNA from Mr. Hartman.
We talked a little about it, and he says, but Don, I didn't do it. But again, you always have that doubt, what happened?
There was just speculation and suspicion.
2 months after Sharon's murder, detectives finally receive results from the forensics lab.
They had tried to do analysis on some of the items which were collected at autopsy to come up with a DNA profile.
Will this be the break detectives have been hoping for?
We were really needing something such as that to come through for us.
2 months after the murder of Sharon Erickson, police hope the DNA results they've been waiting for will confirm who they suspect is her killer.
There was quite a bit of speculation that it could be the postmaster in town.
We were contacted by our state patrol lab. They believed that there was something there, but that they could not separate out a complete profile for comparison. It was kind of frustrating to know that there may be something there, but that maybe it was a dead end that we couldn't get past.
Without a DNA match, We as investigators knew that if that was the case, it would be very hard to solve this crime.
But detectives aren't giving up.
The Nebraska Medical Center could test smaller quantities than the State Patrol lab could do. So we made the determination that we would take our evidence and send it in to the other lab and have more DNA testing done.
Results will take months to come back. And with a killer still on the loose, nerves in small-town Colon, Nebraska begin to fray.
When the investigation went on and on and on, I thought, come on, we've got to find something. We had a murder back in 69 or 68 that was never solved in Wahoo. And of course, right away, you think, gosh, we got to find out who did this.
Could it be someone we do know? There can be a mistrust. All of a sudden you realize, maybe I don't know all my neighbors.
Then, police receive an unexpected tip that points back to the man they can't seem to rule out.
The estate of Sharon Erickson had a garage sale, and Rick Hartman was at the garage sale.
Mr. Hartman went in and purchased her mattress, and that was suspicious to us. If there was some sort of maybe DNA evidence or something that would be on the mattress that would be of interest to law enforcement, by somebody purchasing that and maybe getting rid of it, then it would be something that we would no longer be able to go back and utilize at a later time.
Did he want the mattress because they did have potential sexual activity on the mattress? Maybe he was out there trying to hide additional evidence. Every time investigators seemed to close a loophole with Mr. Hartman, something else happened. He kept drawing attention to him. It was just another thing that brought him back on radar.
Law enforcement asked him about his attendance there and what he bought. He actually denied that he bought her mattress. So then that caused law enforcement some concern on why would you buy it? Okay, why, if you did buy it, why would you lie about it?
Mr. Hartman agreed to undergo a polygraph, so he cooperated in that aspect, but he seemed nervous, on edge, jittery. The results from that polygraph were inconclusive. It left a lot of questions unanswered. It just added a little fuel to the fire.
Every chance that we could get that he could clear his name seemed to be something that elevated him to the next level.
The people in town were thinking it had to be him and were scared to go to the post office.
In a small community where pretty much everybody knows everybody, it's easy to point fingers, it's easy to cast doubts.
I golfed with Rick Hartman that week in our golf league, and he was just nervous. He was just edgy and just scared.
A number of us may have felt like Mr. Hartman had acted inappropriately or suspiciously. We just didn't have enough to really push it over the top.
There was nothing that we could charge him with. We had no evidence that he committed the crime, other than he kept interjecting himself in the investigation.
Detectives hope that definitive proof will come from the Medical Center Forensic Lab.
The last piece that we didn't have back yet was the DNA evidence.
We got a phone call, and they were able to isolate a DNA profile.
They actually located a sperm cell on her clothing, which was a positive breakthrough for us. The only person that it could have been from would have been the person that had sexually assaulted her and presumably killed her.
We felt that there was more hope in solving this than we had had for quite a while, because at least DNA is something that we can link to a specific person.
Armed with this DNA profile, police immediately zero in on their top suspect.
We did send in Rick Hartman's DNA. Came back not a match.
Rick's name is finally cleared from the suspect list, once and for all.
Scientific evidence is what it is. It confirmed everything that he was telling us. There was no romantic relationship.
We were focused on an individual that had absolutely nothing to do with the homicide. I apologize for any stress we caused him or his family.
But if it wasn't Rick, then who killed Sharon?
One of the big concerns that we had is that if this was a stranger that was maybe passing through town, or someone completely not associated with the community or with Sharon, that it potentially could go unsolved without any additional evidence coming forward.
Investigators are back to square one, but they come up with a new game plan.
We try to determine who else should we go out and collect samples from, who else were potential suspects, who could have done this, and who would provide those samples so we can send them in and see if there's a match.
It was just a matter of being able to find that one person out there in the world that belonged to. We're trying to get that needle in a haystack.
10 months after Sharon's murder, in April 2004, police get the results of their DNA dragnet.
The lab got a confirmation that they had a match.
We now know who killed Sharon. It was the breakthrough that we needed.
It sent shockwaves through the entire area.
Almost a year after the murder of Sharon Erickson, police have matched DNA from the crime scene to her killer.
The DNA came back and it matched Jim Mars.
James lived nearby Sharon. He was one of the people that police talked to early on.
Jim had known Sharon nearly all his life.
He had helped her out when he was younger, doing some yard work or snow removal.
I was kind of speechless at first because he had no problem providing his DNA to law enforcement.
I was shocked to find out that James Mars was the perpetrator. We had never seen that type of violence out of him.
Once we had a DNA match with Jim, we needed to figure out where the holes in his alibi are.
When we originally interviewed Jim Mars, he said he'd been out in a bar in Wahoo and later went home. The bartender believed the timeline that Jim had given us was fairly accurate.
Jim's mother stands by her story, too.
I think those alibis were solid, but they didn't cover him for the whole evening. What I think happened is he was home and left. He lived right across the back alley from Sharon's house. And even if he would have been home, that doesn't mean he didn't leave his house. The determination was that we did have enough evidence to proceed with the arrest and prosecution of Jim.
We went to his residence very early in the morning, and he answered the door, and we placed him under arrest. He was shocked that he was being arrested, that he was considered the suspect. We brought him in to interview him.
Police try to establish a motive.
That was one of the unique things in this case, to find out and even just try to resolve that big why. Why would that even happen?
He was reluctant to give any details. There were a number of times he said, "I don't remember." He sobbed at times.
He said he didn't have anything to do with it, denied that he had any involvement. When asked about the sexual assault, he stated that Sharon was an old lady and he wouldn't do that. And from that point on, he stated he wanted an attorney, and we stopped our questioning.
We had filed charges for first-degree homicide, sexual assault.
News of his arrest hits the community hard.
This was very unexpected. I thought, my gosh, something's wrong here. I mean, you just can't believe it. I was hoping that they'd catch someone that I did not know the family.
The reaction in town was split. There was definitely a thought that, oh, it couldn't have been him that did it. And then there were supporters that, well, we thought maybe it was him.
While investigators are confident that DNA evidence will be enough to get a conviction, they get even more ammunition against Jim.
We had at least 5 inmates come forward with information that Mr. Mars had confessed to them. He struck her, strangled her, killed her. These inmates were going to testify against him that he had confessed to them.
With this information, investigators piece together what happened the night of the murder.
Jim was at the bar, like he said. He had a few too many drinks at some point. Went home. He wasn't able to sleep.
From what he told the other inmates, he was looking for some money. He thought Sharon may be an easy target. He was just going to burglarize her house.
He climbed over Sharon's fence in the backyard, cut her phone line so she wouldn't be able to call anybody, pried her back door open, and ended up kicking the door in order to go see if he could find her purse or find some money that was laying around.
Once that back door was kicked in, Sharon woke up.
He was confronted by Sharon, who was holding a gun and threatened to shoot him at that point if he didn't leave.
Sharon went to call 911 and her phone line was dead. She kept her cell phone in her car for emergencies.
Sharon ran across the street to get into her car. Jim chased her down, caught her, and ended up attacking her.
He punched her and then eventually choked her to death.
There was a sexual assault. He refused to talk to the inmates about that.
Had he not sexually assaulted her and we didn't have any DNA, we would never have it solved. When you have a sperm cell that was a perfect match, there's nobody else that could be responsible.
The chance of this being another person was out of this world. With the evidence we had, this was a slam dunk for his conviction.
On August 15th, 2005, Jim Mars pleads guilty to second-degree murder. He is sentenced to life with no possibility of parole.
When I found out there was a sexual assault that went along with the slaying, I was just furious. What kind of person would do something like this? You've got to be kidding me. And the community was appalled. I was happy that we finally got closure. He did it. He's locked up.
Sharon was the one that suffered the ultimate loss. And that's what the investigators put in all those hours of work for and give her her last.
With parents like these, mothers who have kids, then decide they don't want to be around them.
I don't have to get them to brush their teeth. I don't have to be up until 11:30 to do their homework. I don't miss that.
But what do their children miss?
Do you love your children?
More than anything.
More than yourself?
Should a mother love her children more than herself?
Moms moving out. Plus, mothers and daughters fighting it out. This teenager wants to have her baby. She says her parents want her not to.
You had talked about trying to slip her some kind of an abortion pill.
It was more of a joking type thing.
A showdown that leads to court.
He said, "Our daughter is suing us."
The war at home. Mortified by mom in a two-piece? Dad in silly shorts? You ain't seen nothing yet.
My life revolves around her boobs.
The ones her mother keeps implanting.
And this kid says, your mom has big boobs. It's so weird and awkward.
I'm not going to change this part of me. Can't live my life trying to please you.
Mother of the year? And dads, we didn't forget you. Just in time for Father's Day. Leaving your child alone in a stroller in the splash zone at SeaWorld?
If you're that stupid, I want you caught on tape.
Child's Play. Tonight, with parents like these.
Don't our parents always embarrass us?
Not like that. Here's Elizabeth Vargas and David Muir.
Good evening. They were harsh words. I hope she rots in hell. But those are the words from a daughter whose mother just resurfaced after intentionally disappearing, leaving her daughter for more than a decade. And it made us wonder, with parents like these.
David, most people think it's the greatest taboo of motherhood, voluntarily leaving your children, taking a time out that can stretch into years. But the moms I met are convinced that what they have done is making them even better mothers. You take a look and decide. Mother of the Year she isn't. 11 years ago, Brenda Heist dropped off her 8- and 12-year-old children at school and then vanished. In news reports, her grieving family said they assumed she'd been kidnapped or murdered.
It was tough. I mean, every prom, my brother graduated from high school and college. I graduated, and she wasn't there.
But last month, Heist finally reappeared, looking worse for wear, and made a stunning admission. She had abandoned her family on purpose. It's the rare extreme of a mom gone AWOL. The reaction? Widespread revulsion. Don't judge, says Mom Talia Liera. She's no Brenda Heist, not even close, but she's faced similar scorn for deciding to live apart from her children.
I had a lot of shame because of the way that we think about what mothers should be.
That they would never leave their children.
Some people think that.
Talia is a so-called non-custodial mother, a mom without physical custody of her kids. In 2008, she moved to Seattle after a divorce, leaving her 3 children, Nathaniel, Eric, and Serena, to live with their dad, David, 2,800 miles away in Pennsylvania. Talia spends her days painting, writing, making music, and practicing martial arts with her boyfriend. Mothering?
Hey, give me a wide shot of your room. I just want to see what it looks like.
Well, that's done from afar.
And I will walk you through the steps of the scrambled eggs. And
Oh, sure. She emails recipes for them to cook for themselves.
Pancakes.
And she stays in touch on phone and via Skype.
You sound a little like you have a cold.
Yeah, I have a cold.
But they only see each other in person around once a year.
Okay, well, Miss Sweet Cake, I will talk to you again soon.
Bye.
We talk all the time. We're very connected.
And that's as good as being there.
I can't answer that it's as good as, it's just different.
I know a lot of people listening to this will want to know, do you love your children?
Absolutely, more than anything.
More than yourself?
Should a mother love her children more than herself?
Startling as this may sound, there are an estimated 2.4 million non-custodial mothers in the United States. Many of these mothers are heartbroken by the loss of custody. But some moms, like Talia, give up custody voluntarily. Author Rana Reiko is also a non-custodial mother. Her teenage sons were 3 and 5 when she and her husband divorced. Since then, she sees them for 4 to 5 hours, 3 days a week, an arrangement she initiated.
They come over after school, they stay until bedtime, and then he comes to pick them up and they go home to bed.
Rana is brutally honest about why she made her decision.
I never wanted to be a mother initially. I realized that I had kind of fallen into this role that I had never intended to fall into.
Rana wanted to devote herself full-time to her writing, not to her children. She is the rare mom to admit that she does not pine for the daily grind of parenting.
I don't have to get them to brush their teeth. I don't have to be up until 11:30 to do their homework. I don't miss that.
Talia has a different reason for leaving. She says post-divorce conflict between her and David was causing enormous stress for her and the kids, and that leaving, while a wrenching decision, was the only way to ease the tension.
Why so far away? Why did you have to move 3,000 miles away?
At that point, was it 10 miles or 3,000 miles or 3 million miles? It really wouldn't make any difference.
Well, because at 10 miles you could still see the kids and be a presence in their lives.
Right, but in order for the conflict to go away, there had to be a certain distance.
David says there was no conflict, and he says Talia's sudden transformation from stay-at-home mom to West Coast bohemian was astonishing.
I'm completely surprised even to this day.
And his friends?
They were shocked. It's like, how could a mom leave her children like this? What got into her? But she has a spiritual connection with them.
See, I could just like pet you.
That is rather profound, and accordingly, she doesn't seem to need to have that physical contact with them.
How's my boy?
Complicating matters further, Talia's youngest child, Eric, has Down syndrome. Their longest time apart was more than 2 years. Kisses with mom? Well, a computer will have to do.
You have a special needs child. Did it make you think that you owed it to him to be there for him?
Eric is the kind of child that connects to whomever he's around. It sounds strange to say this from his mother, but people are kind of interchangeable to him. and I could tell from how he is that he will have a wonderful life, whoever he's around.
Talia has been called selfish, irresponsible, and delusional. Rana has been called worse.
I got death threats. I got people telling me that I am evil, that I'm worse than Hitler, that I'm human garbage.
Some mothers would say your decision to leave was putting care for yourself ahead of care for your children.
I think that better women make better mothers. When you love and know yourself, then you can be a better mother for your children.
But how are you being a better mother 3,000 miles away?
Because I'm in touch with who I am.
I know, but how is that benefiting them?
It allows me to make choices for my children from my heart rather than from what I think society tells me about what a mother should be.
I've never seen him play his drums.
Oh, really? You haven't?
No, I don't think I have.
You chose to be a mother. Aren't you now just abdicating that responsibility and saying, well, I don't want to sacrifice anything? Shouldn't mothers sacrifice for their children?
I think no mother should have to completely sacrifice. I think to sacrifice your own wants and needs and desires for someone else's life, what kind of a message is that sending your children?
Here's a surprise. Not only is her ex-husband David satisfied with the arrangement,
I think it's been great for the family, from my standpoint.
Talia's son Nathaniel supports his mom despite the distance.
Yeah, it's difficult, but no, I'm not going to grow up hating her and never speaking to her again. I think my mom's a good mom, even from far away.
But for 11-year-old Serena, who was only 8 when her mom left, the emotional toll is palpable.
When I was growing up and my mom lived with us, then I have like a lot of happy memories.
Serena saves every memento from her mother.
These are some Christmas wrappings that I saved. These are like my birthday cards and stuff. They're kind of like special since we don't get to see her a lot.
And she's become a surrogate mother for Eric.
I make Eric's lunch and I feed him breakfast. Sometimes I am actually kind of angry with her that I don't have a mother to do what a mother does.
In her blog, The Better Mothers Project, Talia defends her decision with her message that there is not only one right way to be a mother. Rana agrees. She says she has managed to have it all, an award-winning book and a close relationship with her sons.
I think if I was a man, then none of this would be an issue. People have this idea of what a good mother is. I don't fit that mold, but I definitely fit the mold of a terrific divorced dad.
It's been a while since I've seen your face.
Yeah, it has.
Talia has lived apart from her children for 5 years now. We checked in with Serena just last week. She is 13 years old now and says adjusting to life without mom has become easier.
Our relationship is really a lot closer than it was before. We talked about like relationship problems and, you know, what's going on in the girl's body and, you know, all that stuff.
On the last day of 8th grade, he's gonna ask her out because that's the first day.
And I just, you know, I really love my mom a lot.
But Serena's vision of her future life as a mother?
As a mom, I never want to be apart from my children. I want to make that perfect family that she was never able to do. I want that really badly now.
Mama loves you. Bye.
So what do you think about these mothers who move out? Let us know on Twitter using the hashtag ABC2020. We'll be right back.
Next, whose side would you be on? The 16-year-old who wants to have her baby, or the parents she says want her to terminate it?
We had talked about trying to slip her some kind of an abortion pill.
It was more of a joking type thing.
So is it worth suing your parents?
He said, our daughter is suing us.
Next on With Parents Like These. 2020 returns. Here's Deborah Roberts.
It's a family feud as big as Texas.
Holy crap.
2 teens in love, their parents in hate,
Get out here.
their lawyers in court,
But right now it's a victory for life.
and the media in a tizzy.
They told me the allegations were false.
At the center of it all, 16-year-old Reagan. Hers was a typical childhood in Houston's ranch country, horseback riding, volleyball. But things started going south when her parents, Jeff and Denise Cohen, split up.
Was that hard on you?
It was hard on me because, you know, I was so used to seeing them,
you know, together in the same house.
During the turbulence, Reagan met Evan Madison on Facebook, a fellow horse lover from a neighboring school.
She is just sweet, kind, just everything I want.
He was just very sweet and a gentleman.
And next thing you know, you're dating.
Yep.
Dating was soon more than holding hands and cuddling.
How quickly did it become sexual?
Probably not until we started dating for like 3 or 4 months.
Were you worried at all about possibly getting pregnant?
I was worried, but I mean, I was on birth control, and I quit taking it, and then the moment I quit taking it was whenever
you got pregnant.
A positive pregnancy test said it all.
What was your reaction when you found out she was pregnant?
Shocked. Wasn't expecting me to be 16 and having a baby, that's for sure.
Did you have any opinion about babies and abortion and teen pregnancy?
I would always watch like Teen Mom and stuff.
I know, I feel the same.
I saw, you know, all those moms that are out there, they can do it with their babies.
At first, the young couple kept the pregnancy a secret, then fessed up to Evan's mom and dad, Jamie and Joey.
I'm the boss, that's how that works.
Were you upset?
It's just kind of like a wow moment. Like, I was going to support the kids. I mean, whatever they decided.
Jamie offered to break the news to Reagan's mom, whose reaction was quite different.
I was like, we're going to take care of it. I'm going to take care of business. And
what did you mean, take care of business?
Basically terminate the pregnancy.
2 moms, 2 radically different views. Jamie was herself a teen mom.
I mean, I'm definitely not endorsing it. I mean, it requires a lot of dedication and hard work and sacrifice, but it can be done.
Reagan's mom, Denise, admits she had an abortion and wanted her daughter to consider it as an option.
There were accusations that you had talked about trying to slip her some kind of an abortion pill.
It was more of a joking, do you think I could type thing, and let somebody else be in the same position and to see what they would say.
Emotions between the 2 families soon hit a boiling point when Jeff learned his only child was pregnant.
What did you think should happen?
It's a mistake done by kids that obviously don't know what they're doing. We'd sit down and have conversations with her, and yes, they were heated conversations, and I did let her have it. I did absolutely let her have it.
Did you feel you were being pressured?
When my dad stepped in, he stepped in with my mom and said, I don't care, you're going to get an abortion, and, you know, it's my way or the highway, you know, that kind of attitude.
Do you respect her decision?
Honestly, no.
No.
I don't respect her decision.
Things got so ugly that police were called to the Burnside's house as recently as 4 weeks ago.
The one location of your emergency? We just have a harassment, verbally harassing. It's my dad.
Jeff Cohen insists he never harassed the Burnsides, and no police reports were ever filed.
Did you threaten her in any way at that moment?
Never. At any point in time, that girl has never been threatened. We wanted to fully understand that she knew what the future held for her.
For Reagan, the future definitely included a baby at any cost.
She asked us to please help her. And, I said, I don't know what I can do, but I'll figure out something.
Jamie and Joey Burnside went into action and found attorneys with the Texas Center for Defense of Life who were ready to go to court.
A lawsuit never would have been filed if her parents had been willing to do the right thing, in our opinion, which is to allow her to make the choice to have the child.
During a meeting at this local restaurant, the attorneys arranged a clandestine plan. With her mom waiting outside in her car, Reagan slipped into the ladies' room with a notary and signed the filing for a temporary restraining order. Eventually, Reagan would legally free herself from her parents. The courts call it emancipation.
But why not sit down and talk it out and try to sort it out? Why go to court?
I felt like it was never going to end.
Today, a civil court judge granted a temporary restraining order.
Her parents were blindsided when a local reporter broke the news to them.
I spoke with the teen's father. He didn't want to go on camera.
He said, "Our daughter is suing us." Really? You know, she was somewhat nonplussed. And she said, yeah.
In the lawsuit, it says that her parents had done multiple actions: removal of the cell phone, removal from school the previous day, forcing her to get 2 jobs, taking away her car, and other demands because she was refusing to give in to their coercion to have an abortion.
That is inaccurate. The way it was laid out was wrong. You know, we weren't trying to force her or coerce her or what have you. At this stage in the game, at this point, you know, we were working to, you know, make a plan for life.
The teen's father wasn't happy.
The pregnant teen, with the support of her boyfriend.
The case became a national media sensation.
Do you have the determination to be a good father?
And I said, you know, I hope that you're proud that you have sued your parents. I just want to let you know that those attorneys are not going to be there for you. You know, I said they got what they wanted.
Denise and Jeff deny trying to force their daughter to do anything, saying Reagan has been manipulated by media-hungry lawyers. Still, they signed a court order.
Get out of here.
Jeff was clearly unhappy about it.
We've basically had our child ripped away from us through the court system. Parental rights just, you're just done. You're done today.
249.
At nearly 5 months pregnant, we found Reagan shopping for baby clothes. She wasn't working, and Evan had lost his after-school job at a local grocery store.
How do you plan to support yourself? How are you going to care for your baby?
We're, you know, gonna try to be very, you know, money-wise. We've actually saved about $300-400.
That won't get you too far.
No. I mean, it's gonna be hard.
Perfect.
Weeks later, decked out in cowboy gear, the teenagers formally tied the knot.
We are gathered here today to celebrate this woman in holy matrimony.
Reagan's parents were not invited.
It ripped my heart out. I never, ever thought I could feel that way in my life. That's one of the things that the parents look forward to, you know, is watch them get married and be there with them through all the big events of their lives.
And late this week, we went back to Texas to catch up and discovered that another big event had just happened. Reagan and Evan had a falling out with Evan's parents, so they're now actually living with Reagan's mom, the very mom she sued. They're all happily awaiting the baby, due this September. We'll be right back.
Next, does mother know best? Not according to her humiliated kids. When she's planning on trading up her implants.
If she gets them bigger, it'd be like chaos.
What if she died? Does she like really care that her kids could be left alone?
Next on With Parents Like These. We return to 2020s with Parents Like These. Here's Deborah Roberts.
Taking a walk with mom is a challenge for Lacey Wild's 17-year-old daughter, Tori.
Uh-oh, she's bouncing.
When people see my mom with large implants, I feel like they judge me. Usually girls just like laugh at her, like make fun of her. Men just calling out. My life revolves around her boobs.
Every moment, Tori keeps a wary distance.
Bye, guys.
After all, it's not easy living with a mom whose 52-inch assets are on clear display.
It's annoying. I feel like we should have a normal time, you know, walking down the street. I wish we could take them off when we go places together.
Gun shoes.
Lacey Wild is all about living large. Very, very large. Much to the dismay of her son, Brandon.
Everything's fake, I think. I don't think she looks pretty at all. I think she looked pretty before she even had the surgery.
Lacey claims to have the 7th largest breasts in the world, a way to support her family through public appearance fees. But those volleyball-sized implants are the source of bitter conflict between mom and daughter.
People will start booking her, kind of like, you know, when you go see like the two-headed man. You know, it's not like they're booking her because, oh wow, she's
Thank
like
you,
sexy.
dear. I just love you saying that.
Like, you know,
She's
like
basically
people...
saying I'm the sideshow. I want you guys to play on your iPads, and as soon as I'm done here, we'll go to the park for a little while, okay? All right.
Lacey's work on her website cuts into mom time, according to younger kids Genevieve and Brandon.
She's always busy on the computer, her phone, iPad. She never does anything with us. She's like...
I just got asked to go to the grand opening of a daycare because they want the dads to get involved.
So how much do you think you'll make because of those breasts?
I'm looking maybe make $250,000 a year. My boobs are my paycheck for sure.
Your boobs are your paycheck?
100%.
It wasn't always this way. Lacey started life as a tomboyish girl next door named Paula.
I was just a flat-chested, brown-haired little girl from a Midwest town. That's the house I grew up in. I slept on the floor, but I don't think I'll ever be that poor again.
Married at 16, divorced with 2 kids by 21, she was scraping by as a waitress when suddenly she had a big idea.
I changed my hair color. I got my breasts done, and my money just started rolling in.
12 breast surgeries later, goodbye Paula, hello Lacey Wild. But being Lacey comes at a cost. She can't even pick up her 5-year-old daughter.
This ain't gonna work. I can't lift her up and pull her to me because, let's be honest, I mean, I'm out pretty far. I can't work out, I can't jog.
We used to ride bikes together like every night, and we can't do that anymore.
Sleep, too, is a difficult balancing act.
She has to have, like, a pillow on her boob. Yeah, she has to have, like, 3 pillows under her boob.
After a little while, I can't take it anymore. I feel like I'm being suffocated.
She sleeps like this. Like a mummy. She's like...
Lacey's kids endure a much greater hardship every day, the scalding shame of public embarrassment.
My mom was going to drop me off at school, and this kid says, your mom has big boobs. That made me feel so crazy. So weird and awkward. Yes.
I do want my kids to be happy and not be embarrassed of me and not be, you know, having to worry about being bullied at school or feel embarrassed at all.
So at home in sunny South Florida, Lacey sometimes goes to great lengths to come off like the mom next door.
Extra large pants, extra large jacket is required for this operation. So look, normal mom, right? In 100-degree weather.
Nice try, but not good enough for 11-year-old Brandon.
I want her to get them smaller, not stay the same or get bigger, and then I would be happy.
Well, get ready, kids, for a new round of zany.
Mind you of anybody?
Lacey's about to double the size of her breasts, going from a triple L to a triple Q.
If she gets them bigger, it'd be like chaos.
They'll be like 42 pounds.
Is it safe?
Absolutely not. These aren't safe. I'm a walking time bomb is what the doctor told me.
The surgery's so risky, no American doctor will do it. Tori is outraged that her mom is willing to take that chance.
What if she died? Is she really taking that into consideration? Does she like really care that her kids could be left alone?
But Lacey's fans urge her on, donating for the upcoming procedure in Brazil.
You know, when people like put on the internet like, oh, I'm gonna kill myself or I'm gonna do this, people write on there like, do it, because they don't really care about you. They just want to see you do something crazy, and then they're done. So you're gonna do it?
Well, I haven't done it yet, so.
No, and that wasn't what I asked.
Your daughter Tori is really upset with you.
She thinks that I'm being irresponsible by putting my life on the line.
You say it's upsetting, I feel bad, I don't want them to be upset, but why do it?
It's the money. It's the money. I need the money.
Money to send Tori to college and care for her 2 younger children.
Come on, though. Well, there are people who are working 2 jobs at a grocery store, at a department store.
I was doing okay, but I've quadrupled my income.
Do you ever regret this?
No, actually, I don't regret it. I would do it again. Absolutely.
Even knowing that your kids are upset and embarrassed?
Don't our parents always embarrass us?
The other day I went to a party and this kid came up and he's like, are you Tori? He's like the one that has the mom with the big boobs. I'm like, yep, that's me.
Do you think that this could permanently damage your relationships with your children?
I don't think so. My kids love me for me. I am very loving. My heart's bigger than my boobs.
Next, dozens of drunken teens at a party. Some passed out in the yard.
They say there were beer cans and vomit everywhere.
But when the police came, who got in trouble? The parents inside, who didn't buy a drop of liquor.
The first thing that I remember was a policeman saying that my dad was going to jail.
A mom, a dad, and a gross out party. Next on With Parents Like These.
What's a party without entertainment? Just recently, some R-rated pictures popped up on Facebook of strippers supposedly hired by a mother for her 16-year-old son's birthday. So how does that compare to a high school party with no strippers but lots of drinking? That's more common and potentially more dangerous. But for whom? The kids or their parents?
Prom and graduation season have arrived, and along with the dresses, corsages, caps and gowns, and the parties. Raucous teen bashes that can strike fear in the heart of any parent. Paula and Barry Spencer know the feeling well. For them, last June 16th started out as a day of celebration.
There was a lot of jumping up and down. Yeah, it was amazing.
Their 18-year-old son, Nicky, along with his high school baseball team, had just won the state championship. It was a big day for the small town of Falmouth, Maine.
Nicky asked if he could have a celebration at our home.
I didn't know necessarily what the party would entail, but I mean, it's assumed that people are going to be crazy and pumped up and hyper after a big win.
The Spencers enjoyed entertaining their son's large group of friends, but say they would never cross the line. Like the dad in this what would you do scenario who actually buys alcohol for his teenage son.
You never do a party for the kids?
No, never. I have 4 of them. My oldest is 30. Never. It's the wrong message to send them.
The Spencers say they were definitely looking to avoid sending that message.
What were the ground rules?
He actually told us, we'll keep it to 50, and I said, nothing illegal.
Those would prove to be famous last words.
Barry came to me and said, I'm starting to see people sneaking in alcohol.
People from other towns started hearing about it, and we started having people show up who I didn't recognize, and kind of got a little out of control.
Around 10:30 p.m., an anonymous tip comes into the Falmouth police that there are more than soft drinks being served at the Spencers' home. Sergeant George Savage was on duty.
When I pulled up to the house, a gentleman came out and identified himself as Mr. Spencer and that he was hosting an alcohol and chemical-free party.
Sergeant Savage leaves, but the partygoers keep arriving.
I saw lots of people coming with just boxes and boxes of beer in the woods.
So when the police first came to your house, you already knew things were getting a little dicey.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little more than you can handle.
Yes.
Why aren't you walking through the house saying, time to go home?
I felt like I invited these kids to our home to celebrate, and I didn't have clear evidence that they were all drinking. And I also really felt at the time that if I walked around and said, all right, everybody, we're shutting it down, I thought they'd run to their cars or they'd do something that's more dangerous than what they were actually doing.
So you thought it was safer to let them stay and continue the party at your house?
But not drink.
At 11:30, another Falmouth police officer makes a traffic stop near the house. In the car, he finds one of the passengers is a drunken underage girl who says she has just come from the party. Police make a beeline back to the Spencers.
How had the scene changed?
At this point now, looked like there was a party going on.
Not just a party, a rager that has ballooned to around 100 rowdy kids, openly drinking in the backyard when police descend to break it up.
It was just mayhem. They started breathalyzing any kids that were trying to leave.
The first thing that I remember was a policeman saying that my dad was going to jail.
Going to jail, even though the Spencers didn't provide a drop of the alcohol?
2 parents due in court today.
It's happening to parents all over the country, like this mom who was sentenced to 6 months in a Massachusetts jail for hosting underage drinkers, even though she claims she was duped by duplicitous teens. And this Tennessee school teacher arrested and then fired for the post-prom drinking party she says she unwittingly threw. Denials aside, District Attorney Stephanie Anderson believed the Spencers Spencers were the latest example of parents turning a blind eye to tipsy teenagers.
There was no real attempt to prevent underage drinking at that home.
She points to the police report from that night, which describes a scene fit for a frat house, complete with a teenager passed out on a neighbor's lawn.
They described the scene at your house that night as, quote, an animal house. An animal house. They say there were beer cans and vomit everywhere.
It's just not true.
But Anderson didn't buy their story, and she went after the Spencers, charging them with allowing minors to consume alcohol in their home, a crime that now had them facing jail time.
They wanted to be the cool parents.
Q97.9 is Portland's #1 hit music station.
The story quickly got the attention of the local media.
I mean, can you imagine at that moment how you're going to feel? I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to get arrested for this.
Wrong. 21 and over, you can drink. 21 and under, you can't drink. It's the law.
A few clicks on YouTube illustrates the ever more devious and dangerous ways kids are finding to get drunk. From eyeball shots to vodka gummy bears to downing hand sanitizer. It may make you wonder whether adult supervised drinking parties are such a bad idea.
What's more dangerous? Having my kids down in the basement where I know they're going to drink a few beers, or having them go out to the softball field at night and drink where there's nobody to keep an eye on anything?
In this scenario, there's no difference at all. There wasn't anyone there to keep an eye on anything.
But Anderson had a hard time convincing a jury of that.
When it did go to trial, it was split down the middle,
Yes.
6-6.
Yeah.
Did that surprise you?
No, not terribly. It's a very divisive issue.
Rather than retry the Spencers, Anderson offered them a deal. No jail time, but they would have to pay $17,000 in fines and restitution, write a letter of apology in the local newspaper, and serve 100 hours of community service each.
You know that there are critics who say that you were overzealous in this, that you have a cause you're promoting.
Well, underage drinking is one of my causes, that's true.
But do you really think you're going to stop underage drinking?
No. I don't think I'm going to stop underage drinking.
So then what have you done? Haven't you chased it back to the unsupervised, unchaperoned location?
Well, I think what this case did was it got the issue out in the open. I think parents are putting themselves in the position of the Spencers and saying, what should I do differently? If I'm going to have a party, I better have chaperones.
We did not intend for kids.
Parents think some of this stuff is cute, and that child, subconsciously or in the future, may not trust his father as much.
The kid takes it in stride, though. Dunk. Falls down, gets right back up.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Check out this dad at a theme park leaving his son unattended in the splash zone.
Oh my God! Okay, he's not big enough to get in the water ride, so we'll just park him near where the water will hit him and he'll get kind of the experience. Don't do that to your kids.
From the theme park to the ballpark, often the venue for classic dad discombobulation. Look at this guy.
He's got a baby in one hand, does he, and on the other?
Here is second of the year. 3 home runs. This dad doesn't even manage to hold on to the kid.
His daughter just tumbles out of his lap into the bleachers. Yeah, the look on her face pretty much tells the story.
Yeah, you idiot. She gave him the death stare, and he deserved it.
Is there something about the hard wiring of the male brain that makes us just slightly less capable in this arena?
I think you're being very kind by saying slightly less capable. I think we're a lot dumber in some of these things. Yes, of course, it's the way that we're hardwired. We're much more rough and tumble. We're not as nurturing.
There really is something about a sporting event that can summon a father's evil side. Look at hockey coach and dad Martin Tremblay during the post-game handshake ceremony.
You look back and he scoops his leg. You do realize you're a grown man, right?
The 13-year-old he tripped broke his wrist. Tremblay was banned from the league and sent to the grown-up penalty box, jail, for 15 days.
I think this peaks the bad dad meter into bad human. Well into bad human at this point. Overall.
It gets even darker than that. This surveillance video from a gas station in Detroit at 3 in the morning became a national story. Look closely at who's driving. A 9-year-old girl, her father in the passenger seat.
9 years old.
Yeah, she's 9. She drove us here. It's awesome. I have such a system. Is that camera on?
Listen, we're leaving, and she's driving. I'm drunk.
The surveillance video went viral, and the dad, Sean Weimer, went to court, where he was sentenced to 2 years probation.
If you're that stupid, I want you caught on tape.
Speaking of punishment, remember this dad? Tommy Jordan made a huge splash, even getting interviewed on 2020, after he decided to take his daughter to task for an anti-parent rant she posted on Facebook.
You know, when your parents tell you to do something, you do it. You don't go, God, fine.
In retaliation, he went Eastwood on her laptop.
The only lesson this taught this guy's daughter was dad is a maniac, and I can't wait to move out.
Dr. Gardier says this is the exact wrong way to punish your kid.
Good parenting would be all of that time and effort that he spent at making that video, spending that time instead sitting with his daughter, talking with her about her behavior.
Now, we should say not all of the caught-on-tape moments involving dads are negative. Let's wrap this thing up with a clip from a father letting it all go. He has become known as the dancing dad on the internet.
I think the dancing technique was spectacular. It served the purpose, and I stand by him 100%.
In conclusion, in an era when more moms are working outside the home, more dads are stepping up. But as they do so, our experts say the humiliation doled out by these viral clips should serve as a useful reminder.
So your bottom line message to dads on this Father's Day seems to be, don't be an idiot.
Don't be an idiot. Think about what you're doing. You're allowed to make mistakes, but for heaven's sakes, learn from your mistakes and try to be a good dad.
That's our program for today.
I went upstairs, found his bed all made up, definitely not been slept in.
He was a 69-year-old farmer. He had a vast farming estate worth tens of millions of pounds.
He had just disappeared.
There were rumours going around that he had a run-in with some of the community that might have been using his fields.
I got the phone call saying, can you please come over? My Land Rover's been burnt out.
So the police were lined up all the way along.
The police combed hundreds of acres.
What was it you were worried about the police finding out?
Is it a sort of secret message about what you're going to do to Bill?
Gosmore, the quintessential picture postcard hamlet nestled deep in the Hertfordshire countryside.
It's the kind of place where a lot of neighbours know each other. It's very friendly. You know, people will take in parcels for each other and meet in the pub for a few drinks here and there. So it's got a good community feel to it.
It's this kind of idyllic South England hamlet, sprawling farmland.
And the majority of the farmland in Gosmore is owned by the Taylor family.
William Taylor was known as Bill to his friends. He was a 69-year-old farmer from a village in Hertfordshire, and he had a vast farming estate worth tens of millions of pounds.
Bill Taylor was a salt-of-the-earth sort of character. His ambition in life was to buy a farm. And not only did he buy a farm, he bought several farms and he became incredibly wealthy.
He never took any holiday, and I mean that. He always worked on the farm. And he would always say hello to me and to anybody else. He was always friendly.
Bill lived in Harkness Hall in Gosmore with 53-year-old wife, Angela.
He was married to Angela Taylor, who was 17 years his junior. They'd been married for nearly 20 years. Both been married before, both had children from previous marriages, and they had 3 children together.
Bill and his whole family, they're so lovely. He was friendly, quite talkative. I would ask you like how your day was. He was just such a lovely man.
As well as his 3 children with Angela, Bill also has one son from his first marriage, Richard, who lives nearby with his wife Emma and 4 children.
We did everything together. We were lovingly referred to as the dream team. I enjoyed spending time with Dad. It didn't matter what we were doing, as long as we were together, I was happy.
He also used to come down to this farm, and he always used to be around 10:30 to 11:30 every day to see his son and have a cup of tea and have a bit of biscuit or cake and talk to his son about farming.
Angela and Bill's relationship came to an amicable end in 2015. And she took over running 2 of the farms.
He certainly still loved Angela after 25 years of marriage, and he never actually got divorced to her, and he still wanted to get back with her.
Well, my parents, they separated in 2015. They were still getting on, so I didn't see any problem there. They still worked the farm together wherever they went.
Bill felt really strongly about his family, so instead of divorcing her, he agreed to settle the farm between Richard, his first son, and Angela. She moved into a farmhouse not very far away from where Bill lived, and Bill would go every evening and he would have supper with them. And then he would come back to his own home, which was Harkness Hall, where he lived on his own.
As Bill was getting older, his son Richard worried about him and turned to friends for help.
I cooked meals for him for a couple of months, and a couple of times I used to stay for perhaps 2 or 3 nights at Harkness Hall, and I then moved in on a permanent basis.
And Sunday, June 3rd, 2018 was like any other day for Bill.
I took Grandad round his Sunday roast, as I had every Sunday for the last 6 weeks. I arrived just after 7 p.m. and sat with him and talked while he ate. We spoke about the farm. He asked about the cultivator we'd just collected. He was looking forward to being busy with hay and silage very soon, and with the harvest just round the corner.
But life for the Taylor family was about to change. For all of them, forever.
On the 4th of June, Mr. Lush had come back from a trip in the early hours of the morning. He'd gone to bed and woken up in the morning, and he said there was dishes in the sink that were dirty, which was unusual because Bill was a very clean person. He would, even if there was one dish, that would be clean, so he thought that was odd.
I left the house in the morning about 5 to 7. Bill normally gets up at 7 o'clock, and he hadn't got up. And I came back at about 11 o'clock, found the post on the floor had been delivered and not been picked up by Bill, and I found the washing up in the basin still there.
He could just tell something wasn't right. Bill would be walking around the farm. He would always be up first before him. He gave it a couple of hours, thinking maybe he was sleeping in, he was getting older. But he eventually found it so suspicious he had to physically open the bedroom door himself.
I went upstairs, knocked on the door, opened the door, found that his pyjamas were on the pillow and the bed, all made up and definitely not been slept in. I went downstairs, phoned Richard, asked him whether Bill had been in for his usual morning cup of tea or coffee, and Richard said no, he hadn't seen him.
It was a busy day, and I did think it was strange that he didn't come down, but as the day went on, concern rose, and Dad sent me to look for Grandad. After checking the house, which felt eerie, I immediately suspected something had happened. I called Dad, and we checked the whole farm, before meeting up at Harkness Hall and getting Richard Lush to call the police.
It was so out of the ordinary for Bill, who'd lived there all his life, to go missing, to not check in with anyone, for nobody to have seen him around the farm.
The family spent the whole of the day on the 4th of June searching for him, trying to find him without success. So in the evening of the 4th of June, Mr. Taylor was reported as a missing person.
Police start interviewing those closest to Bill,
Clearly, he was a man who was devoted to his family and spent a lot of time with his family. So it's essential that we speak to all of the family to build a picture and understand who Bill was, what he did on a day-to-day basis, and effectively work back from that to try and understand where he'd gone missing.
Why would Bill have disappeared without telling anyone? As police start to investigate, information starts to emerge about what was really going on in his life.
He had his family from his first marriage and his family from the second marriage to Angela Taylor, which it's fair to say don't get on at all. So there was a natural divide, there was a natural split between the two sides of the family.
The relationship between Angela and Richard was just one of complete loathing and hatred. They didn't get on, barely spoke. Both of them were deeply suspicious of each other's role in William's life. Both thought that each other was greedy and after Bill's money.
Bill was definitely in the middle of the feud, and he was always the one trying to sort it out.
He was really getting pulled by both sides, loyalty to his son and also to his wife, who he loved.
Seriously thought, well, he's obviously had enough of the family feud, he's obviously just walked out. I mean, he knows farmers up and down the country, he could have just walked off anywhere and just not told anyone and just thought, well, sod you lot, I'll let you all worry about me for a change.
When the police went to the property, there was various documents in the house, including a very sort of emotional letter to Angela. It wasn't a goodbye letter like a suicide letter. It was just trying to explain to her how much she meant to him.
Hertfordshire police have to consider the possibility that Bill, fed up with fractures in the family, needed some time out. But could he have been suffering more than he let on?
In order to structure the investigation, I need to consider, has he gone away? Just decided he's had enough and wants to lose himself? Has he committed suicide? And there was an indication from certain parts of the family that Bill had been feeling depressed about a number of situations. Had he become ill or incapacitated somewhere whilst working in his farm or on his land? That needed to be considered.
Officers start to trawl the vast area of farmland.
The police combed through his land, which was extensive, hundreds of acres, in case he'd got into difficulty. You know, he was approaching, it was just days before his 70th birthday that he went missing, and he was quite infirm with the arthritis.
The police knocked on our door and gave us a missing poster, and they searched a field right in front of the house.
So the police were lined up all from the back of the field, all the way along. There must have been between 30 and 40 policemen, and I could see out of my window upstairs them searching it, which was just a crazy thing to come out of the house and look at, really.
And that took us between 8 and 10 weeks to complete that search. If Bill had committed suicide, or if he'd become ill whilst working on his land, we would have expected to have found him within the area of that search, which we didn't.
But as the missing person investigation intensifies, some information comes to light.
In the week before Bill was reported missing, his vehicle, a Land Rover that was parked in the barn at his home address, had been subject of an arson attack.
Suddenly, police start to think, does someone hold a grudge against Bill? Is someone out to get him? Has something more sinister happened? In the picturesque hamlet of Gosmore, nestled in the Hertfordshire countryside, new information has come to light about the days leading up to the disappearance of 69-year-old millionaire farmer Bill Taylor.
I got the phone call Sunday morning from Bill saying, can you please come over? My Land Rover's been burnt out. I asked Bill the question of who did he think burnt out the Land Rover. His answer back to me was immediate, that he thought it was his son Michael.
Michael denies this and says he too was confused as to who would do such a thing.
I think the last time I saw my dad, this was just after this Land Rover had been arsoned. And I didn't believe him, so he shouted down on the phone to me, said, well, get your backside up here and I'll show you what's going on. And that day, yeah, I mean, we just went in the house with him and we were trying to figure out who the hell could have done something like this, why they had done something like this, and try and figure out why and where and how and what's going on, sort of thing.
There were rumours going around that there were lots of trespassers on his land, and he'd had a run-in with some of the travelling community that might have been using his fields, and other people have told me that it might be a calling card when your car gets torched if you've had a run-in with those sorts of people.
As forensic examinations begin on the Land Rover, the search for Bill Taylor and the questioning of those known to him intensifies.
Police spoke to all of his close contacts, people that he would have worked with, farmhands, labourers, and his wife, his children.
We treat both sides of the family in exactly the same way. We request exactly the same information from them.
At the time of being questioned, we just assumed it was protocol and something that we had to go through. If it helped the search for Dad, it didn't matter. Myself and my family did everything we were asked to do by the police without question.
Effectively, what we're doing is we're treating all of those people as witnesses. We would hope that out of their care and concern for a missing family member, that they would engage with us and be compliant and provide us with what we're asking for.
As police delve deeper into Bill's background, more information about the divide between Bill's two families emerges.
As far as I was aware, the family feud started when I was only about 10, 15 at the time.
As tensions between the two families grew, Bill and his son Richard stopped talking for a few years.
Bill and Richard were completely estranged, didn't talk to each other. There was no communication between them. And similarly, Richard despised Angela. Saw her as just trying to get as much out of his dad as possible.
I was never made to feel welcome around my grandfather's house. One incident I remember clearly was when I was 11 or 12. I'd been muck-cart with my grandfather and was invited in for a cup of tea. He couldn't stop offering me things to eat, biscuits, cakes, etc. I felt he was happy with me being there and was trying to make me feel as welcome as possible. However, he heard a car pull up and looked out the window, and he said, "Drink up and I'll take you home," and tried to hurry me up. Then Angela came in, and he didn't want me in the house with her. Angela despised me and my whole family. It was a sickening hate, pure evil.
In 2015, Bill and Angela separated, but remained close. And soon after, relations between Bill and Richard began to thaw.
I think because he was talking to his son again, he was certainly a lot more at ease and happier with himself than he was talking to his son, and life was getting back to normal.
Police need to establish if the family feud could have had anything to do with Bill's disappearance. But then a discovery is made, which turns the missing person investigation on its head.
Bill's grandson did actually approach us in relation to a link from a bracelet that he had found in the farmyard, which he told us was like a bracelet that his grandfather wore.
Bill suffered from arthritis, and he would always wear a bracelet to help him with that. So suddenly they have the broken links from this bracelet just a stone's throw from his house next to his cow shed.
I did have my suspicions, especially when Ben found this bracelet in the cattle barn 2 days later, that something had happened to him.
3 months after Bill's disappearance, and the course of the investigation changes.
When all of those normal inquiries that we would conduct, including searching premises to try and locate the missing person, have all been exhausted, it starts to suggest that perhaps there may be foul play involved.
By September, it was pretty obvious to the police that there was something afoot.
There'd been no sightings of Bill. There'd been no activity on his bank accounts and so on and so forth that you would normally associate with somebody still being alive and well and just living their life in another location.
They really needed to tell everyone, including the family, that things had moved on. This was now a murder investigation.
I remember when the family liaison officers came to see us at home. It was around 7 a.m. to inform us that 3 family members and another man had been arrested for Dad's murder. They didn't state who at that point.
I remember Richard coming in one morning and saying, they've all been arrested down at the farm where they are. I said, what? He said, 2 o'clock in the morning, the police arrived and arrested Mrs. Taylor and they arrested the 2 boys.
We were dragged out of bed early in the morning and I was in state of shock at this time, saying that I was being arrested on suspicion of this, this and this. And I was just totally baffled. I just didn't know what to say. You know, it really hit me. It hit me hard. It hit me very hard. You know, over my own dad, that bloody hurt.
Bill's estranged wife, Angela, and her 2 sons with Bill are bailed pending further inquiries. But a 4th person is arrested. Local man Paul Cannon.
He was a labourer, he drove diggers, he worked here and there.
He was working in a quarry. He was looking for somewhere to stay. He'd actually been moving some soil and earth on Bill's farm, and it was through that contact that they got to know each other.
As part of the forensic investigation, we were aware that items used in that arson could be forensically connected to Paul Cannon. So obviously that started to elevate my concerns around Paul Cannon and his potential involvement in Bill's disappearance.
Despite linking Paul Cannon to the arson attack on Bill's Land Rover, police have no other evidence as to where Bill is, or whether he has come to any harm. But something has come to light to throw suspicion on his wife, Angela.
What my family liaison officer team brought to my attention was their concerns around the behaviour of Angela and that side of the family. Angela would never proactively phone and ask us if we'd found Bill.
I mean, this was meant to be his wife of 17 years. I don't think she was particularly heartbroken or as worried as she might have been.
Paul Cannon was carrying on with what seemed like daily life, and so was Angela Taylor. And yet Richard Taylor's family were all out doing searches in the fields looking for Bill.
They were always on the phone, you know, what's going on? Have you found Dad? They clearly came across as a genuinely concerned family who were desperate to understand what had happened, whereas Angela's side of the family were the complete opposite.
They were heard by detectives to be talking about Bill already in the past tense, while at this stage he was still officially a missing person.
So do his wife Angela and farm labourer Paul know more about what had happened to Bill than they are letting on? And the question remains, where is Bill? And why would anyone want to harm him? In the quiet Hertfordshire hamlet of Gosmore, police investigating the disappearance of local farmer Bill Taylor have made arrests.
In September, Angela and Paul and 2 of her and Bill's sons were arrested.
Their accounts were what I would call wishy-washy, very non-committal. They simply suggested Bill's disappearance must be down to Richard Taylor and his side of the family, but there was actually no basis for that accusation.
And then they were bailed pending further inquiries.
Police have linked local man Paul Cannon with the arson attack on Bill's Land Rover, but now suspect he knows more about Bill's disappearance than he is letting on.
By the middle of August, I was of the mindset that Bill hadn't disappeared voluntarily, that he hadn't committed suicide, and that he hadn't become ill or incapacitated. And therefore I was left to start investigating that this was actually a criminal act.
At this time, police were now treating the case as a murder investigation.
But with no sign of Bill or a body, Police have their work cut out to try to tie Paul and Angela to something more sinister.
When those people were arrested, we conducted searches at their home addresses. In doing that, there appeared to be gaps in their mobile phone downloads. There seemed to be messages and call records that had been deleted, which raised concern as to, well, why? If you're innocent, why do you need to delete certain aspects of your phone history?
Paul Cannon had deleted thousands of messages between Angela and himself, but unbeknownst to him, the messages were still available to police on the memory of his phone, and they extracted 28,000 messages between Paul and Angela between February and June 2018.
With so many messages between them, police start to wonder, what is the connection between Angela and the farm labourer?
Paul was looking for a farm building to rent, and he come down to one of our yards and rented an old corn bin of us. And then just suddenly, he started coming in the house a bit more. As far as I was aware, there was nothing going on, and it was just a normal friendship.
But the messages found by officers suggest otherwise.
From the initial telephone downloads, we were aware that Angela Taylor and Paul Cannon had been having a conversation in January of 2018 where they were discussing Bill and his reluctance to agree to a divorce.
Paul Cannon was besotted with her. You could tell from the strength of his messages that strength of feeling for her was incredible.
There was lots of sexualised content. There was lots of imagining really unpleasant images.
It was always suspected that he was involved in some form of relationship with Angela Taylor.
So are Angela and Paul really having a relationship? And had Bill got in the way of their plans for a future together?
She'd already actually acquired 2 farms, which were worth millions of pounds, and she'd acquired those debt-free from Bill as part of a separation agreement.
There was a post-nuptial agreement. Bill had already signed over significant land and property, so certainly on her part there was no financial motive.
With Angela wealthy in her own right, police cannot find a reason as to why she would want Bill out of her life, and are back to square one. But police are convinced he is dead. Investigators then receive information which makes them take a closer look at Paul Cannon.
A call to the investigation team established that there was a vehicle, a Suzuki Vitara Jeep, that until recently had been seen at the family's home address but had subsequently gone missing. We were able to establish that Paul Cannon had actually started trying to, for want of a better phrase, get rid of that vehicle around the 4th and 5th of June, and in fact by the 7th of June he had disposed of that vehicle. Of course, the relevance being Bill's reported missing on the 4th, so within 3 days of that report being made, Paul Cannon has got rid of this vehicle.
That vehicle was found in Bulgaria months later. The fact that you sell a Jeep for cash shortly after someone you're accused of killing disappears perhaps doesn't look the most innocent.
We were able to recover that vehicle from Bulgaria and bring it back to the UK for examination. And our case was that Bill was murdered on the night of the 3rd into the 4th of June, that his body was taken to the deposition site in that vehicle, and then that vehicle was disposed of to eliminate the possibility of us recovering any forensic evidence from it.
The recovered vehicle offers up no clues to help the team, but further digital investigations into messages on Angela and Paul's phones suddenly spark interest.
On the night of Bill's disappearance, the 3rd and the 4th of June, there is a message sent from Cannon to Angela Taylor at 23:36.
He said that he was just watching Kill Bill 2.
And Taylor replies, "One would be enough." I made a decision that they were to be arrested before they were due to answer bail on the 3rd of December.
Angela and Paul were charged with murder, conspiracy to murder, and arson over the death of Bill Taylor.
Well, that was a big shock. I mean, my head was just everywhere. I just didn't know what to think. I just thought, no way. That was the first thing, no way. They couldn't have done something like that, no way. He must have just walked out, you know, just give it a bit of time, he'll come back. You know, that was all that kept going through my head.
The pair are subjected to intense questioning.
Are you ever going to tell us where Bill's buried?
No comment.
Because that might be a redeeming feature, mightn't it?
No comment.
Might help your case.
No comment.
Returning him to Richard and his family.
No comment.
But neither admit having played any part in the disappearance of Bill Taylor.
Did you think that WhatsApp couldn't be accessed by police? What was it you were worried about the police finding out?
Is it plan B? Is it a sort of secret message between the two of you about what you're going to do to Bill?
By January 2019, police are ready to take the case to court.
One of the things that we would do in the case of what you would call a no-body murder is conduct proof of life inquiries. And that is essentially building a picture of how Bill lived his life, demonstrating to the court that as of this date, everything stopped and Bill ceased to exist.
But as the trial date looms, there's a discovery which threatens to turn the whole course of the investigation on its head.
On the 10th of February 2019, Bill's body was discovered.
10th of February 2019, Sunday afternoon about 4 p.m, we were sitting in a lounge when the girls came down and said the police were here. Before they said anything, we just knew they'd found Dad.
We all knew by the looks on their faces that they'd found Bill. It felt like the world had just stopped spinning.
It was a very surprising discovery. It was made by a fisherman who had been looking for a fishing site, but had gone off the beaten track, gone into an area that he wasn't supposed to go, into private land, and had discovered what appeared to be a body in overalls, partially submerged in very thick mud in the river. This body was identified as Bill Taylor's.
Even though we knew Bill wasn't coming back alive, until his body was found, there was this minuscule hope that it wasn't real. Now that was gone, and we had to accept that he'd been murdered.
He was totally decomposed. He was largely skeletal. He was still upright in the mud, waist deep in the mud, wearing his Wellington boots and blue overalls.
I just didn't know what to think. My head was just everywhere, totally spinning. And, you know, it just never thought I'd go for anything like this in my whole entire life, ever.
The discovery throws doubt on it being a murder.
The unusual aspects are that there were items found in and around Bill's body.
Scattered around the body was a half-eaten corn in the cob, bizarrely, a bottle of Bailey's liqueur, a ceramic teacup from Bill's house, and some lengths of rope were near the body as well.
Had Bill, in fact, gone off on his own accord those 8 months ago?
He's gone to some boggy ground, he's got drunk, and he's got stuck in the mud, or got into some kind of accident, or with the rope, he's maybe tried to kill himself.
With a trial for murder looming, police now need to establish if Bill was killed, or had he got into difficulty while out and died an accidental death. In Gosmore, Hertfordshire, police have discovered the body of Bill Taylor, on farmland, 8 months after he disappeared without a trace. With Bill's estranged wife Angela and her lover, farm labourer Paul Cannon, due to stand trial for murder, suddenly the police need to establish if Bill had in fact died of an accidental death or harmed himself.
The forensic pathologist who conducted the post-mortem, Dr. Randall, was also somebody that I asked to come out to the scene. We were able to say that there was nothing there that suggested any form of suicide. Dr. Randall was also able to establish there was no illness, no disease that Bill was suffering from that would have led to a natural cause of death, or had something happened where Bill had got stuck in that water and then drowned. As part of the post-mortem, one of the tests is whether the diatoms that would be found in that water source had been ingested by Bill, and they hadn't. So what that test suggests to us is that Bill's body was placed into that water source when he was already dead.
The position of his body in the river was consistent with him being carried on a fireman's lift over someone's shoulder and dumped with his feet first into the mud, and then his body pushed over and flattened so his face was into the mud.
The one thing that did come back from the forensic report was a possible fracture to one of the delicate neck bones, which raised the possibility that Bill had been strangled and then dumped in the river.
With investigators confident Bill Taylor had been murdered and having a body to prove it, on 2nd September 2019, his estranged wife Angela Taylor and her lover, Bill's former lodger and labourer Paul Cannon, take to the dock at St Albans Crown Court, along with a third man, a man who police discover Paul had called 4 months before Bill's disappearance.
Paul Cannon contacts him and says, "Do you know anybody that could do this, and how much is it likely to cost?"
The court hears that among the WhatsApp messages between Angela and Paul, they discussed how to get rid of Bill.
They discuss the hiring of a hitman. They're talking about someone else needs to do it. And then Angela says, "You phone that bloke, can't keep going on like this." After that phone call, Cannon says, "I'm good, darling, just spoke to the man, and it's going to be about 20. I'll go halves with you."
All three defendants deny conspiracy to murder, instead blaming Bill's son, Richard.
We know that Bill and Richard had a strained relationship. They hadn't been talking. They tried to paint a picture of Richard having the most to gain from Bill's death.
Because they didn't like Richard Taylor, it was quite easy to point to Richard and the feud that had existed in the family for some time and almost suggest that he had a reason to get rid of his father.
It was horrendous to be accused of murdering my own father, hearing the disgusting things they said by WhatsApp messages. To hear what they wanted to do to my father, to my family, myself, still gives me sleepless nights. I felt that I was on trial, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. They tried to say I'd murdered my father for a £40,000 life insurance policy.
As the trial unfolds, jurors hear more details about the messages shared between Angela and Paul in the months leading up to Bill's disappearance.
They would stay up late until 11:30, midnight, talking about how they wanted to hurt Bill, how they wanted to hurt Richard, and that side of the family. Cannon says, "I'll kill for you, darling. I get so scared of losing you. I'll never find anyone like you, and I'll never want anyone as much as you again."
It became apparent they had planned and imagined what they called Plan B.
What was it you were worried about police finding out?
Is it Plan B? Is it a sort of secret message between the two of you about what you're going to do to Bill?
Which was to kill Bill Taylor.
In their defence, they said that the WhatsApp messages were just part of a fantasy world that had no basis in reality, and that Paul said that that's what would get Angela going, and that's why he did it, because it heightened their sex.
The couple stick to their defence. But the court hears of another discovery which the prosecution believes proves Bill was attacked and killed.
When we recovered Bill's body, he wasn't wearing that bracelet, and we'd been told that he wore that without fail. He never took that bracelet off. So we undertook a further search and went back to the yard of Harkness Hall. And lo and behold, not too far from where his grandson had found that single link, we found further parts of Bill's missing bracelet, showing that that bracelet had been broken, had been subject to some force at that location.
That tied in with Bill being lured out of his house, attacked on his land, the bracelet breaking, and then taken, either dead or dying, to be dumped in a spot where they knew very few people would go, except, of course, this fisherman 8 months later.
The prosecution claimed Bill was strangled to death outside his home. His body dumped in the river, having been taken there by Paul Cannon in the jeep he later sold to Bulgaria.
These two people had formed a joint intent to kill Bill Taylor, whatever it cost, and their motive was clearly set out in the phone messages. Paul Cannon had set out that day with that intention in mind, and although Angela wasn't present, she was well aware of what was happening and she was party to it. And that's indicative of the fact that his body was hidden actually on her land.
Despite the evidence put before the court, Angela, Paul and the third defendant continue to deny their involvement.
During the trial, I would say Angela was just nothing, just cold, no expression whatsoever, no emotion in any way, shape or form.
She didn't accept that she'd been involved in any sense in the planning, that she had been influenced by Paul Cannon. She'd been attracted to him, that she was in a relationship with him, that it was almost a titillating sexual fantasy that they both indulged in, but that it wasn't actually going to happen in real life.
Paul Cannon, the one and only time I saw him express any emotion during the trial was when he was asked a question about Bill potentially wanting to reconcile his marriage with Angela. And his response was emotional, but also angry. And he said, yeah, the man's deluded. The man's deluded.
2 months after the start of the trial, the jury returns its verdict. Paul Cannon and Angela Taylor are found guilty of murder and arson.
When they were found guilty of it, I just thought, well, why? Why would you get rid of someone, especially our dad?
The judge acknowledged that, well, she probably wasn't involved in the killing itself. She was the driving force behind it. She came to be seen as quite a master manipulator, getting these men who were so obsessed with her. I mean, Bill Taylor loved her to the very end, wanted her back after everything she did to him, and Paul Cannon was besotted with her. He was clearly prepared to kill for her.
The third defendant was cleared, but Angela and Paul are sentenced to life in prison.
And both have to serve a minimum of 22 years.
The killing itself, I think, boiled down to she'd been married for around 20 years to Bill. He was 17 years her senior. She was finished with him. She had a new lover, and she just hated the sight of her husband and wanted to be rid of him, and saw her opportunity to manipulate her new lover into carrying it out.
With the case now behind them, Bill's family and friends can try to pick up the pieces of their lives.
It's been heartbreaking to go through what I've been through. It really has. I never thought I'd go through anything like this in my entire life, ever. It's just impossible. It's just like something you just see on TV and think, that'll never happen to you, that'll never happen in reality. It's just impossible. Why would it happen? But the true fact is, well, actually it can. And, you know, it's tough. It's very tough.
I went with the family to the funeral. I was in the funeral car. And about when we went into the church, it really did move me because so many people were there in the aisles. They were 3 deep. So many people were there for Bill.
Losing Dad has been the most horrendous situation I've ever had to deal with. I don't believe I'll ever get over it. I'm desperately trying to continue the farm in the way he raised me, with his environmental ethos and animal care. We try every day to uphold his legacy and his farming way of life. I would like my father to be remembered as a good man and a great farmer, not a murder victim.